It cuts off, that's why I have to remove it.
Oh,
Okay, it's back up.
All right, y'all back on the air for Craig.
He's going to give
Okay.
his name and then repeat what he just told you.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Charles Williams. And basically what we were discussing about the dirt, roughly 35,000 loose yards of dirt there. That's one reason for being in there. And the other is they have roughly about a 14, 16 acre hole that we can bring excess from Highway 49 and dump in there. We need it for both reasons. When someone was stating something about the amount of dirt and piecemealing things together, when the state put this job out for bid, we've almost doubled what the bid was for the whole entire job. And we're not even halfway finished the job now. That's not something we looked at, or that's what the state set out. So as you were talking about in Star, did I think we had enough dirt? Yeah, we had probably double or triple the amount of what we needed down there. I thought we were real safe.
right.
That's not going to be the case anymore. So now we're scrambling, trying to find some places. And we're working on other places that, you know, bigger like it was in Star to keep us going through the remainder of the job.
And this is really more of a freebie from Mr. Grantham. But my understanding is that the application that went into DEQ for the 4-acre exempt mine operation was composed to that 4-acre site. And so according to what we understand on the county side, I don't want to speak for DEQ, I'm just giving you the information that we have in front of us, which may be different than what's actually in front of DEQ. But my understanding is DEQ has blessed a 4-acre site, okay? And so the idea of spoil material being brought on site and offloaded has to be contained to the 4-acre exempt mine operation. If DEQ has not been notified that the intent is to place spoil material outside of the 4-acre exempt mine description, then somebody needs to be getting back to DEQ and making sure that that disclosure has been made.
Can we
Otherwise,
find that out before Monday?
I don't know. Mr. Grantham's going to be, it's going to be necessary for Mr. Grantham to satisfy himself.
Well, I'd like to, before I make a decision, and I'd like to know, and I think you need to know, Roger, because before, and if we can find it out before Monday, we've got Monday's meeting.
Again, the exempt mine operation is limited by the borders of the 4-acre site that's been described to DEQ. That's all that's been permitted.
The reason I'm saying that, he may not want to go this route if he can't, because I think he's also been sold that I can use all this, bring all this spoil dirt in. If that's not the case, I want him to have some, I want him to have some thoughts on that before we make a decision. So at this point, I'm not willing to make a decision.
Before we reach any sort of conclusion, I want to make it clear on the record, Jared, just to make sure. Has everyone who wants to speak on this matter had an opportunity to speak? Is there any additional information that anybody wants to share with the board before we close this public hearing?
Come back up here,
forward,
bud.
please, Ms. Pearson. Apologize for making you come forward, but we got to get it on the record.
As I say, I'm Bud Pearson, but let me shed a little light on this subject. I was doing a job at Richland, Mississippi, for Jackson Air and Hydraulic, putting in a building pad. One of their superintendents come by and looked at the red dirt material that we was putting under this building, and he says, "Oh, we need a bunch of that to bed our pipe with." And I said, "Yeah, it's good material. Ladner's tested, Mississippi tested, Burns and Cooley, everybody in the country knows it's good dirt." Well, Yates' man come to me and asked me what would I deliver dirt to their project to bed their pipes with. And I give him a price. He says, "Oh, we can't pay that. We're not paying that." And I said, "Well, I mean, that's what it needs to get the material." And then about 3 or 4 months later, here come Yates, the big dog, gonna push the little dog away. And that's the bottom line. This is, the 4 acres we're talking about is extremely good dirt. And they do need it to bed the pipe with. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But I'm gonna add a little something to this. Young man, this old head's gray. I was a superintendent for Yates Construction Company for 9 years. I worked for him when Mr. Gully Yates was running. And now Bill Yates is running it. And I know,
But talk to us. He can hear you, just talk to us.
but anyway, I know that they do need that material. And I'm like Jared, I want to see 49 Highway built too. But I just cannot understand why we go through this much trouble. An acre of ground, 1 foot deep, will yield 1,664 yards of good material. Is that about right, Mr. Buster? I mean, you ain't talking about that much material for all this going on.
Well, that's the reason I said I want to know. I think maybe Roger's thinking there's more to it because of the spoil dirt opportunity, and I want to know that even is in the factor.
Right.
And so I'm not at the point to make a decision today. We can bring this back up Monday, as far as I'm concerned, and see if we can find out an answer between now and then.
Right.
Jared, that was part of the discussion when we met out there. The spoil dirt coming in, if it exceeds the 4 acres.
It does, or does?
If it exceeds the 4 acres, yes, that's part of the pit. Anything outside of that 4 acres, you know, if you dumping dirt all over the pit expands.
Oh.
That was discussed.
So really that
DEQ.
outside the 4 acres is really not
So
allowed.
we don't have access, we, the county, does not have access to DEQ's record keeping. I don't know what they've been told, what they hadn't been told. What I'm saying to you is you just heard a presumptive intent on the part of the applicant to bring in spoil material from the job site and to use a 14 to 16 acre hole to fill it. And that tells me you are necessarily outside of your 4 acre permit. So now what's happening is we need to clarify that. Either the spoil material is going to be contained to the 4 acre exempt mine permit site, or they're going to need to go back to DEQ and explain to DEQ that they need to get a permit for a 14 or 16 acre hole to do spoil material into. I just don't want the landowner, who is ultimately going to be responsible for anything that's a violation of DEQ regulations, he needs to know that now before we turn them loose
I
and start
agree,
hauling.
and that's the reason we can stop right now.
Okay.
All right.
So what again, I want to make it clear, is there anyone that needs to speak or to deliver any additional information before we close this public hearing?
Because this, if we're just looking at acre and a half, I don't see how. Go ahead, Roger, he wants
Well, I
to.
was just wondering, what you just said, so we'd have to have a permit, bring the dirt in, is that what you're saying?
If it's inside the 4 acre site, you already have a permit.
No,
for the
I mean,
DEQ.
Put it outside,
Right.
we'd have to have another
You need
permit?
a permit from DEQ
Okay.
that allows for that particular part of the operation to be outside 4 acres. You're going to have to expand the pit, and I think you're going to probably, at that point, you're outside of 4 acres, and now you're going to have to go through their total regulation process.
Okay.
And it's probably gonna be
Is that-
costly.
If DEQ says, okay, it's time to reclaim this pit, are they saying that you've been operating it under the grandfather, but now we're telling you, it's all, after this acre and a half is gone, it's time to reclaim it? They've got to go back and file for a permit?
I don't know what DEQ's.
Okay, we don't know their
No, sir, we
regulations.
don't.
Right, that's it.
So that's their regulation.
But I don't want to get you caught in right in the middle of something
Yeah.
that you thought would work, and now I just went to all this trouble for acre and a half, and now I got a mess.
I think your question, well, the answers to your questions are not here. They're at DEQ. And then we review what they have.
Correct.
All right.
All right, any other communication to the board on this matter? Any other? All right, we're going to close that hearing. Jared, I think you have a pending motion to table consideration of this until Monday,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so there won't be an additional public hearing. We've closed that. You've received all the information that you want to get at this point. There may be something that comes up that you want to add.
Well,
to the record yourself.
I would advise
Jared.
parties to be here,
Yes.
so they can
So
hear.
the decision will be rendered at the board meeting on Monday, July 1.
Okay, all right.
One additional freebie, and this is, I think Mr. Pearson's still here, and the other gentleman as well. And so what what is before you guys is a 4-acre exempt mine operation administered through DEQ that was filed by Yates on behalf of the landowner. What that suggests to me is that with respect to that 4-acre site, DEQ is open for business on that. They understand that situation and they have blessed that 4-acre site. It sounds like there is dirt available for that. If Mr. Pearson and others and the landowner wish to proceed separate and apart from the Yates consideration, they are welcome to file a conditional use request with Renee's office, and we can get that process underway irrespective of what happens on the Yates. I do not see us being in a position to reach a conclusion on that for quite some time. I'll defer to Renee as far as the timing is concerned. That may be about a 45-day process in that neighborhood. So I'm just making them aware of that. What's before you is the Yates. Irrespective of what happens there, the process of securing a conditional use for Mr. Pearson or others would be available to the landowner, but it's going to be a time-consuming process, and they might want to consider going ahead and getting that started in anticipation of what could happen with the Yates consideration.
Basically, no one can dig out of it till this is resolved.
That's correct.
Okay. He can't even be selling he can't let them dig out of it till this is resolved.
Yeah, so what we know, for the record, what we know at this point is that this operation has been underway for quite some time. I don't know whether or not it technically qualifies for any sort of grandfathering consideration anyway, Jared. My sense is that it does not, and therefore it has been operated beyond the capacity of a 4-acre exempt mine operation for many years.
Well, that's not for me to decide.
So,
Okay.
Jared
All
has
right,
made a
we have a
motion to
motion.
table.
Right.
Motion by Jared to table this issue until Monday.
Yep.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. Well, y'all all jump right in here.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Table.
Okay.
All right, let's move
That was the
on.
longest hour table discussion I think I've ever had.
All right, this one's in your district. Let's see. I'm gonna write
I'm
down
fixing
an
to break the
hour and
record.
10 minutes.
I'm fixing
on
to
that.
break the record. Mike Word, do the introduction. That starts it off right.
Yeah, that.
Had to get it started right. Wouldn't it?
All right, Mr. President, if y'all are prepared, we're ready to move forward to item B under my section, which is a continuation of the public hearing for the Fleetway Market Conditional Use Permit, 4136 Highway 471, District 2. So we have the applicant present with us today. Let me open that public hearing again, and I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to the Fleetway Market Conditional Use Permit. Anyone here to speak in opposition on the matter? If you'll come forward, please. State your name for the record and your address.
Crystal Martin. I live at 4134 Highway 471. I own lots 2, 3, and 4 of Stones Throw, which is next to the lot that we're talking about, lot 1. Can we pull those pictures back up? Or no?
I don't know if she's
I
got
think
them.
we know them. I mean, we're familiar with it.
Would you call it barrier
Right.
with the trees?
Between, yeah.
I would think that we would need some kind of fencing also in addition to that, because I've tried to grow trees in my yard. I've lived there 7 years and no success because the ground stays so wet. And I've done cypress, cedar, you name it. Brought my mom in who can grow any kind of flower you can think of, and it still didn't work. So I think that we need something else as a sound barrier, privacy. And is there actually, how do you go about deciding if there's a need for gas in that area? Like, is it based on population or?
Oh, you mean like fuel for
Right,
cars?
fuel, yeah.
Okay.
Because there's already 3 access points for gas in that area. Sorry, I'm not good at this.
You're doing good.
Lake Harbor, is one place. You've got Tommy's Trading Post, and then you've also got Sunset Marina. And they're all within a quarter of a mile. So is there a need for gas in the area? Do we need more fuel? Sorry,
I've
I'm supposed to say fuel.
never actually heard of that before, so I said no
Well,
on
it's-
me.
Well, we are out in
for
the rural area for a
right,
reason.
For the same side of that, though, I guess it'd be more of a private concern based on the economic development need of his business model and plan, whether he thinks he can make money selling gas. If he can't make money selling gas, I don't think he would try to.
But
I mean,
is he gonna hurt the businesses that are already established? Because,
Oh,
I
sure.
mean,
I don't know.
I guess
because
that's part of
half
it,
the
you know.
time- Half the time, they're out of gas. I mean, they can't get
well, I
gas
know when I buy
delivered out
gas,
there.
I'm gonna buy gas in town where it's cheaper, not out in the middle of rural county.
Hey.
But I mean, I guess if you're
maybe
running
this
low,
makes
you
gas
gotta.
cheaper. I don't know.
You
I
gotta
don't
buy
know.
it.
But
Okay. Well, I know we didn't address that last time. We just
Sure.
kind of wanted to see what his model looked like, which he has changed a lot, and he's trying to make it fit into the
are you
community.
happy with the model minus the bridge and stuff like that?
I
Not
am.
bridge, but
I
the
am.
fence.
He's came to my house. He's done. You know, he's talked to me, and I think he's tried to contact some of the other neighbors
Sure.
to try to make it work,
Mhm.
which I appreciate that. And it is understood that it is a commercially zoning
yeah.
now, and that basically we're just trying to get approval for the gas sales.
Yeah.
And I know that anything can come into the commercial too, you know, hopefully not another Dollar General since there's one right down the road, but,
Right.
I guess that's my main thing since he's worked on the traffic and the safety, and, I mean, that's pretty much everybody's concern in the community is safety.
Right.
You know, we have children and,
Ours too.
yeah, and I really hope that it doesn't depreciate the value of my home.
Great.
I do not have a mortgage, it is paid for, I put a lot of money into it.
Dang, go ahead.
So, yeah, but this is where I would be getting the butt on that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay. But you feel if the barrier's there, the fence or something like that, the barrier may be improved a little bit
Right,
more.
I
You're good
like
with
the
that?
idea of the tree line because
Yeah.
it does kind of separate it. I do have the tree line on the back of my property between me and the subdivision.
So maybe in case if the tree line or plants he's trying to grow doesn't work, doesn't
Correct,
take or
if
whatever,
that
we could come
falls
back
through.
onto the fence side.
I
Which
don't
he
know,
said that he-
Daniel, I think you don't get on the front end, you ain't.
Well, I mean, we'll have that discussion, I guess. I'm just trying to get her
Say that
thoughts
again,
on it.
what'd you say?
My thoughts were if the grass or trees or bushes or plants, the vegetation he was going to put in that spot, if they didn't work, didn't take, didn't grow, and the
Right.
fence was there, you're good with it at that point.
I think so.
Hey, what-
But
what
I
was
would like both to be there though,
Right.
you know, I don't know
was
what
your
kind of.
address?
4134, Highway 471. Mine was the
Yeah.
house that was in the picture.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Paid for.
Thank you for coming and speaking.
Do y'all do any kind of like, I know there was a previous discussion about landscaping, I don't even remember what y'all were talking about. Y'all talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You're talking about as far as
Do you get to
upkeep and
pick and like help him? I mean, how do you decide what goes there? 'Cause
he would.
I just
he
don't
would-
think vegetation's gonna last, but I mean,
it'd be up to him to
and
decide.
it's gonna be
I
years
mean,
before trees grow and.
Well, it probably also depends on how old he buys them and plants them and things of that nature. So I'm going to let him address it, and maybe he can give us some better answers for it. Okay?
All right, thank you.
All right.
I'm Jackie McGee, and I live at 4062 Highway 471. We've just built a house up there. And we're happy with everything just like it is. I know he has good intentions, but there's gonna be more trash in our yard. There's gonna be more riffraff. And he's knocking the little people out of their business, I think, you know. But it's probably gonna happen. We know it is. I wish him the best, but I just don't want it because you're gonna have more guns up there and shooting, and we don't need to be like another Gluckstadt or Madison or wherever. We're a little country place, and we like to keep it that way. But Crystal has said it all, so I'm just with her, and
Thank you
I
for
like it
coming.
like it is.
Thank you for speaking.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to Commissioner Hughes' request? Okay. Do y'all wish to hear from the applicant?
I would. I'd like, Mr. Morse, if you wouldn't mind, just maybe addressing just a few of the things you just heard just a few seconds ago. And again, I appreciate all your work and your studies and your diligence on this matter. So just a quick overview real quick and maybe hit those barrier topics.
Okay. Yeah, in regards to the landscaping and trees and the creating a barrier, my intent is to begin that process as soon as the season permits, which will be, this fall or after, the first of the year. I don't have intentions to start this project, just so you'll know, certainly not this year, not next year, perhaps the following year, perhaps, but I'm just trying to, plan ahead on this. But the first thing I'm going to address is the buffer.
What's
And
your thoughts on the fence side of that?
I would hope that the landscaping would, because I'm gonna plant, it's a pretty large buffer, 50 feet, and it may even increase more. It's not going to decrease, but it could increase to a larger buffer. But, you know, I'd like to try this, and if that doesn't work, I'm gonna get some professional landscapers involved and do some soil testing to make sure that what we plant will grow there. And, you know, there are trees, that I believe will grow there. They just have to be, the soil has to be prepared properly and they have to be planted. You know, the selection of the trees is important. So I'm confident of that. But I will be getting expert advice. I'm not just gonna go out there and plant it myself, so I will be doing that.
Sure.
And as far as, the other lady that is concerned about, I don't know, the loitering clientele like that. I don't, we operate a store in Madison and Gluckstadt, and we want to have the same image here at this location as we do at those stores. And, you know, professional, clean, well kept, and, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and that's the way we're gonna run our stores. So we'll have security cameras, the place will be loaded with them, we'll have security lighting. So I don't anticipate that being a problem. Not to say that somebody's not gonna come out there and loiter, but if they do, then we'll deal with it. I mean,
Can I ask you, what made you decide to do this?
At this
location.
particular location?
Yeah.
I just feel like it's needed and that it would be viable.
You got two state highways coming in together. You got a lot of traffic coming up
I
from
was
Red
asking him, not y'all.
I'm just curious. I'm trying to have a little insight here, you know?
Looking at what he said
You
is
didn't say
right, the
anything in
traffic.
about an hour, so I was being sure you're engaged over there.
No respect on this board. Yeah.
Looking primarily at the traffic.
I will speak, I just want to speak in your favor.
Are you cousins?
Huh? No, I'm a son, if you hadn't realized, Mark's son.
Yeah, more.
Oh, okay.
Boy, how many years?
Actually, I
Anyway,
thought it was
I'm familiar with a lot of your stores, and I've noticed, especially after you came in here, when I've traveled, I've seen them, and I've stopped in a couple of them just because I did, and he does keep a very clean, neat facility, much more than you see a lot of times. So I will say that for you.
Yeah, we're a family-owned business, and, you know, not a large corporation, so that's very important to us.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate all the work you've done on it and all the renderings and the time you spent with Renee's office and all the communication back and forth and the communication to the neighborhood and the neighbors, not really a neighborhood, but the neighbors that are out there. I do want to echo the concerns of the barriers. You know, I think that's extremely important. I'd like to see the fence if the trees don't take, and I want to be sure it's there. If not, both of them are there.
Right.
I just want to be sure we got that clean boundary between
Right.
the two, and I know you're going to operate in the best intentions of keeping all the property values and everything up for a clean store and area right there. So your previous work shows that. So if you bring the same attention to that as you do this, I think we'll be in good shape. But I do want to emphasize the barrier.
Yes,
And that's
why I want to address
the
it
critical
first.
side of it to me. So, Steve?
There were some things that we asked, and one of them was the traffic study, and I think you've applied or put paperwork in to get a traffic study. Have you received the study back? Do we have a copy of it?
Renee does.
I think they emailed that to us.
Yeah,
What I saw suggested that, or maybe I misread it, we hadn't gotten it back or whatever, but obviously we have, huh?
Yes, sir.
I need,
It's recommended for those two turn lanes on the 43 side.
and who would build those?
Mark's responsible for installing those.
I want to look at that. We're not in a hurry today. I want to look at that traffic study.
They completed Neil Schaefer did the study and completed it. MDOT has it now.
They have approved it?
No, MDOT has it, but Neil Schaefer is confident that they will.
But MDOT has not approved.
Not officially, no.
That was my,
Okay.
all right, until,
Yes.
let's let that system work and look at it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Neil-
because we
Neil
sure don't
had
want to come back
recommended-
saying we need a red light.
Well, Neil had their recommendations were on Highway 43 because of the speed of the traffic was for deceleration lanes, which I anticipated that because I
Yeah.
watched the traffic.
Right.
But on 471, they didn't recommend that, but so that's probably because they know that's what the DOT is going to want.
Okay.
On the 471 side, it's coming up to a stop sign, so they're slowing down anyway.
So why did y'all say we had gotten it approved back?
No, I thought that they.
The
said
recommendation was.
Yeah, I thought
that
that
was-
was.
We hadn't
MDOT.
gotten MDOT.
MDOT hadn't stamped
Report,
it.
the traffic analysis report, and what the recommendations were that were on.
Yeah, we keep this up, I'm gonna make a motion to pay Mr. Morris's mileage.
Yeah. If I may make a suggestion, to clarify, I believe Daniel's comment was that he prefers for one of the conditions to be that if the vegetative screening is not adequate, and we will leave that decision to the discretion of our community development office. If the vegetative screening is not adequate, then the condition would be that the applicant must install a privacy screen fence, and at the point in time that the Office of Community Development determines that the vegetative screening is not adequate.
Okay.
Okay? So that would be clarified for the record. Does everybody understand what that means? Okay, yes, ma'am. You need to come forward. No, ma'am, that's fine. Come forward.
So is there any way that we can just do the privacy fence and not the trees? Because I'm telling you, the trees are not gonna grow. And that could be years, and they'll, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, can you ask that? Or would you be willing to make that change?
that would probably be less expensive.
The fence would be less expensive putting all them trees out there.
and it'd be probably less
Would you be
pain on
happy
your,
with that?
on your
Yeah,
stake than to
I don't
mess
have
with
a
it.
problem with that.
I just don't think the trees are gonna grow. I'm just telling you. I mean, I'm not an expert on horticulture or
Me-
whatever that
Me
is,
neither. But I mean, if that's what you'd rather have, it's.
I would
it's
like
your-
both,
your
but I just,
property's there. Well, I
doing
guess
the
that's-
trees first, I think the fence should come first and then him plant the trees, you know, and give them time to grow, and maybe not as much as you did said, you know, I mean, or maybe.
I want to plant the trees first, but
You
the
come up
fence,
here
I
beside him, come
wouldn't
on.
want to do that.
We've become friends.
Until the construction begins.
Yeah.
My other thing with the fence is people walking from that property onto my property. Middle of the night, they can come across, there's no barrier at all, I mean, they can walk through trees, you know? Just the safety part of it.
I
My
got you.
little girl there,
Well,
I
it's-
really prefer there
I'm
be
not
some
saying
kind
it's
of
approved,
separation.
but if it is, it's not gonna be a hangout for, I can tell you
The
that.
operating
I hope
hours is
not.
not
Well,
gonna allow
yeah,
that.
we're not gonna,
Okay.
if it does get built, and 10
I
years
meant
from
to
now,
say
or
that,
20
but-
years from now, or whatever.
I meant to say that a while ago, because I just know, like, young teenagers that are going and cutting through the parking lots, they're gonna be coming across the property, and with just trees there,
Yeah.
it's not thick, they can just walk right through, you know,
Well,
if there's a
and,
fence.
and the only thing on the fence, and Mr. Morris can address this though, upon construction, the fence, because let's just say he plants the trees, 2 years down the line, he said, tell you what, I had a fault that I'm not gonna build a wall right there. And he didn't come back and there's a fence on your property, and there's still nothing there. You know, so my take would be, let's plant the trees. He's a couple of years out from even going down the building route of it. And if we're not into that position, it'll be in our motion upon, if we go through to vote through it, it'll be in the motion there that a fence will be put up at our discretion. So,
And will we be notified, the neighbors, when there's another meeting and things?
sure, if we,
Like,
yes.
I would not even know about this.
I
if
think
it
we
wasn't
gonna know
for
about it.
Mr. Morris.
Sure, right.
So how do we find out?
I don't think there'll be another one.
There won't be another one?
I don't believe.
Until we get into some kind of maybe architectural review or something of that nature, if the board decides to go that route.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I might have missed it, but
Yes, ma'am.
what is the time of operation? Is it gonna be a 24/7
No,
job?
ma'am. No,
No,
ma'am.
it-
It was, I thought we talked about that last time.
We did.
I mean, I know. I'm just trying to double check the hours. I was thinking it was around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. What was the time frame,
Right.
Mr. Morris? You remember?
Probably 10 on weeknights, 11.
Yeah, it's not a 24-hour day deal. Yes, ma'am. All right. All right, Mr. Slay.
Yeah, so, Ms. Renee, do you have the conditions? What's the pleasure? Are we going to wait on DOT's final confirmation with respect to the traffic study and the approval of access before we take action, or do you want to make your decision contingent upon the DOT approval of the accesses? You can do that, by the way, and we can just go ahead and end this rat killing altogether. I would suggest that you consider simply making your conditional use approval and/or denial. Well, I guess at the denial you don't need conditions, but whatever you're going to decide. If you decide to approve this, that you make it conditional upon the receipt from DOT of confirmation that the accesses are approved.
And whatever changes need to be made will be incurred by.
Exactly. That simply the applicant will be required to comply with all DOT regulations with respect to access. Does that make sense, Mr. Morris? All right, so that would be.
We're not the applicant. I mean, we're not the one
I
putting
said
it
by
in.
the builder.
Yeah, we're not the applicant.
Including
Yeah.
a traffic light if they put that in.
Whatever DOT's requirements are, he'll be required to comply with those or get it worked out with DOT somehow. That we will not, his conditional use would be contingent upon working all details out with DOT with respect to all access issues.
And then they hire off-duty Rankin County deputies to be there from 6 o'clock till 11.
Daniel, let's make a move on this.
Yeah, I got you. So that's my motion to approve, based on those two additional areas as Slay had pointed out in my motion. It's going to be with the fence, trees first.
Okay.
As we get into that point, construction begins, we move down that route. We make the determination whether we have the proper barrier that's there. If it's not, the fence goes up. Then the same side of the approval from MDOT as far as the turn lanes, traffic study, et cetera.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to make clear though now, he does have to come back. He just wants to make
Yes.
sure he can be approved
Correct.
for this use.
We'll come back for architectural
Then he's
review
got
and stuff like
his
that.
Drainage and
Yep.
everything, a detailed site plan, everything. So he
This
will
is
be back.
just the conditional use permit, and your conditions are vegetative screening. If that doesn't work, in the discretion of community development, we go back and install a minimum 6-foot fence,
Yep.
privacy screen fence, okay? That's one condition. The second condition is your conditional use approval is contingent upon the applicant being squared up with DOT with respect to all access issues.
Sure. That'll be my motion, Mr. Slay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Daniel, second by Bob. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Me. Motion passes.
Okay.
4-1.
All right. Mr. President, item C is a discussion of a letter that has been received by the county on behalf, or from the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services. This letter was sent to Sheriff Bailey on the 19th of June.
Excuse me. Excuse me, who voted against it?
Steve votes against.
Steve.
Okay.
Okay, item C is a discussion of a letter that's been received from the Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services. This letter was sent to Sheriff Bailey on June the 19th of 2019. The letter, I'm just going to sum it up for you. It is from the Department of Rehabilitation Services, which is a state agency, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation for the Blind. They have pointed out to the county that there is something that I'd never heard of, frankly, a federal law called the Randolph-Shepard Act, which provides for entrepreneurial opportunities for blind licensees by establishing vending facilities on federal properties. I don't know why they are communicating with us, but nonetheless they have. What they are requesting is a convenient, the arrangement of a time convenient for you and our agency to conduct a survey to determine the feasibility of establishing a vending facility to be operated by a blind vendor. And then it goes into suggestions. They refer to this federal law almost as if it somehow applies to the county. We've done the research on this, by the way, and the state of Mississippi has actually conscripted this federal law. We have in Mississippi a mini Randolph-Shepard Act statute, 43-393, that basically says if it's a state agency and there is an opportunity to comply with Randolph-Shepard on state property, ye shall do it. And then it says, as the legislatures want to do, If you're a county or municipality, y'all can consider doing it if you want to. So we have complete discretion, thankfully, to determine whether or not we want to engage on this. Your current vending arrangement is with Coombs Vending. That agreement's been in place for quite some time. I've not ever heard any real issues other than the fact that they won't stock Diet Pepsis. I haven't heard any real complaints. I'm not drinking anymore, so don't worry about it. But nonetheless, I've not really heard any complaints. I don't know. Sheriff wasn't here. He left. He gave up on us. I don't think that there's any dissatisfaction with our current vending relationship. I'm letting you guys know that we got this. The sheriff flipped it to me because you guys control the vending contract, okay? So I'm just looking to you guys. What I'd like to do is to write them back and say, thank you, but we're exercising our discretion to stick with what we've got, and we'll come to you in the future if we have other opportunities that we see. Can I have your permission? I don't need a vote.
Yes.
I just want to.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to do anything that had anybody sideways about that being the response. Okay? Then that's all I wanted to talk about on item C. Item D is the authorization of our county administrator to request funds that have already been appropriated by the Mississippi Legislature. This is the special session, 2018 special session legislation where the state of Mississippi authorized $2.8 million for the Florence Byram Parkway, a.k.a. Gunner Road Extension. And so we need to.
Tate Reed's Mama's Parkway.
So no comment. So we need to ask for the funding, and we have to comply with DFA's requirements. So I'm asking you to authorize the county administrator to do whatever she needs to do to get straight with DFA so we can take down that $2.8 million. They keep blowing my email up. So please authorize the county administrator to get with DFA and get this squared up.
I make motion approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Jared, second by Bob. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Does anyone need a copy?
Please.
Yes,
Please.
I think we all do.
I made three.
Made plenty.
I did.
I want to remind everyone that these
Thank you.
are talking points.
Sure.
These are not for action unless y'all are prepared to take any action. I will submit to you that the descriptions that are on this document do not necessarily reflect the way that projects that are ultimately approved will be categorized. So we need to be real careful with this particular document. This is not a final document. This does not in any way bind or obligate us, and the descriptions that you find here are subject to being adjusted so that we comply with the bond statutes. One item that was in error left off of your list. It was totally an error and an oversight on the part of your board attorney, who will remain nameless, is a request that has come from none other than our illustrious youth court judge, who happens to be here with us today. And so I wanted to magnanimously offer myself to fall on the sword for having forgotten to include that. Judge, I apologize. You were made aware of that request. We do not have a final number for that request, associated with that request, so I don't know that it would have done much good for us to have included it, because it couldn't have been included in the total amount calculation anyway, but it's there, and that would certainly be a qualifying project. All right, so
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that project, since the judge is here and Paul has sat through this nauseating meeting? They need to have some airtime, I would imagine.
Yes, sir.
If they won't.
Judge Broom, do you mind coming and helping us understand a little bit more about that project?
I read the email you sent, Judge. I just want to it's been a while since I've looked at it again. Since you're here, kind of elaborate more about the need.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Morrow, Mr. Morrison, Mr. Cross, Mr. Bishop. and Mr. Slade, sword and all. Thank you. Paul Bowen's here with me today, and we thought we had all the fun all in Pelahatchie all the time, but I see that y'all have it here equally as well. We just have a request. Captain Gray here is for the Sheriff's Department too, from detention. As you well know, we will be celebrating our 8th year moving in September of 2011 in the Juvenile Justice Center in Pelahatchie, and we're grateful for that and the leadership of the board in helping us get there. Since that time, we've had growth. As you may well know, we incorporated another court on October 25th, 2017, a day that we shall live in infamy, and have taken on that court as well. And additionally, services have changed over the course of time, particularly in regard to educational services that are being offered in the building. We've moved from 1 teacher to having a staff of almost 6 in the educational component, courtesy of the federal government and additional conscripting from the Department of Education. So space requirements in that regard have changed. We've also had a number of additions staff-wise due to a number of federal grants that we've acquired and been awarded with regard to our 0 to 3 Safe Babies Court team, our expansion of our juvenile drug court, and help me out, Paul, anything else?
Well, you've also got the addition of the state employees from.
Oh, yeah, we've recently gone from having 1 DYS counselor where we were allocated 6 slots. We've only had 1 for a period of time due to some issues with the Department of Human Services, Division of Youth Services, and now they're finally giving us our appropriate level of staffing. So we have a number of people who are doubled up in offices without offices, and quite frankly are moving, which has led us to a couple of problems. One is lack of parking. We have some need for additional parking spaces that we have available. We think that could be taken in with relative ease. The other is we have a portion of the building that was built as a recreational yard that has a brick exterior wall that we would like to try and take and put a roof over and incorporate that so that we could use that space for classroom and office setting in the detention side. And we also have a need for additional room for offices on the court services side, as well as space for training. We don't have an estimate of what those are. We brought the plans from the building when it was constructed initially that we'll be happy to show you what we're talking about and kind of give you some idea of what we're looking at. But we're open to the board for any direction that y'all may have to provide. We just knew that y'all were looking at projects, and this is a project that Captain Gray and Mr. Bowen and I have been trying to address, and quite frankly, we've been juggling, trying to put people in offices. And
so is it, Judge, I don't mean to stop you there, but is it a combination of education and office space? Is that kind of?
Education, office space, and growth of the records that we're maintaining. Y'all may recall we bought a storage container, cargo container 2 years ago, and we've got it filled up with records that we inherited from another court. That shall remain nameless.
Based on your population today, it seemed like before you took on your additional court obligations, y'all were extending your hands outside in other counties and helping those counties bring their folks to us. Do we still have that problem, or we still have?
Oh, we are funding a number of our operations by the use of the detention facility by other counties. What are we up to about now? 30, 32, 33? Probably 28, right? 28, yeah, give or take. They've opened up a couple of facilities to allow other counties to use them down on the coast that were previously closed to other counties, but we're still operating, carrying a lot of kids from other counties, which they're paying for the privilege of housing them there with us.
Judge, if we were to stop doing that and just take care of our kids, would we need to do this additional?
Yes. This is regardless of whether we housed anybody else. I'll tell you that housing for other people
I know we get
brings in
money
revenue for it.
But if we gonna end up having to spend a lot more and hire more people to deal with all these extra kids, would we not be better off just, taking care of us and keeping our expenses down?
Well, you're going to have the same level of involvement because on the court side, the services that we're providing are only for our kids.
Right.
We're not providing court services for those other children. The only thing we're providing is detention services for those out-of-county kids in the back. So from a personnel standpoint, we have those needs are not going away. Our personnel numbers are staying up. The only thing that would change is potentially whether or not all of the beds were being used in the detention side, which they're not currently all being used right now. They're maintained at a pretty appropriate level, but the education side would stay the same because what's going on is essentially where we used to have one teacher who was a funded position by the State Department of Education. That position has grown into having a mini school, basically with case managers, special ed services, testing operation. So whether you have one kid in the building or whether you have 30 kids in the building, you're going to have that same level of involvement from the school because of the way the federal government has come down on providing detention education.
Gotcha.
And that's coming from the federal level, the
Yes.
push down.
Yeah.
And
The
I'm sure.
Department-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The Department of Justice got involved with LaFleur County Juvenile Detention Center and basically has been on site up there for the last few years and has entered into consent decrees with them. But they've also been in consent decrees and sued other locations and basically mandated a level of educational services for children in detention that's much greater than what we started out with 15 years ago.
You can imagine too, based on our esteemed state leadership, that cost is going to ultimately be pushed down on us at some point down the road. That we'll be funding the educational side of that.
Yes, we are constantly seeking and we'll happy to receive any assistance from y'all. We've gone to the legislature on numerous times to ask them to increase the funding to the State Department of Education so that can pass through to the school districts who actually have to provide this. That funding has not gone up since it was initially implemented some 15 years ago. In fact, it has decreased. So where we were funded previously and we were having our cost covered from the school district standpoint, that they haven't seen any increase in those funds, but they've had to provide an increase in services. So we're hoping that the new legislative leadership in 2020 will oblige us with some additional funding because it's desperately needed from the state.
Why, they decreased it because they closed some?
No, they just didn't fund it. I don't know. They didn't.
Who knows why?
Is any of this additional space tied into any grants? Like if we're getting money from different, you get an excellent job of getting getting grants. If we lose it, are we going to lose any of that need for that space? I guess does that make sense? What I'm asking?
No.
Okay. That doesn't make
No.
sense.
All the space needs will still be there.
Once you need it.
And as you heard this morning with the luxurious dirt commentary, we're in a growth spurt, and one of the things that we've seen over time is that that's grown exponentially is our abuse and neglect cases within the county. And that's typically, even though that we're in the lowest unemployment in the state and some of the highest per capita income, we still have extreme levels and pockets of poverty as well as drug use.
I look at your aerial photography here on the map and kind of, do you go to the north, Captain Ray, with the expansion,
Yeah,
or are you
Paul,
going to go, Paul, whoever,
We can show you. I don't know which would be easier to show you here.
I look and I see a tract of land. I don't know where you guys talk. Multi-Craft owns the track to the north, to the south of you.
There was a potential,
You know you're in trouble when your folks bring their own damn plant with you, you know, that,
Yep.
this is the existing footprint, overall site plan. This is the.
See.
This is Industrial Drive right here. For those of you who've been to Bubba Flanagan's complex, that's his private drive that goes off behind us here. But that's the sharp curve in the 90 on Industrial Drive. That's the entrance into our parking lot. So you have customer parking out front. That's the entrance to the building. Basically, this is all court services side. There's kitchen staff as well as sheriff's offices in here as well for some of his detention hierarchy. This is the hallway that goes over to the secure pod area, and you can't really see it from this, but this portion of the building right there has an exterior wall, but has a chain link covering on the top as an interior rec yard. And so what we were looking at is just extending the roof line over to take that area in, because it's already accessible from inside the building. And the other is that from an expansion standpoint, where there's in the front lobby, there's a hallway with restrooms that has a glass wall on the end of it. Any additional space, future expansion was planned for there, which was to take in this area right here. And additional parking, we were looking at maybe coming in for a one row of parking on the employee side right here coming off the street. The only issue is making sure, as y'all know, there are no water lines, sewer lines, or anything else that you're gonna get hit with.
I have no idea yet either, do you?
Yeah.
what about your capacity for detention? If you're keeping 28 folks from other counties, that gives us some room, I guess, to kick them out if our population base continues to escalate.
Yeah, if we had to, we could.
Okay, you don't see that being a...
Yeah, we've the state has gone through a process, and we've gone through a process to shift how detention is used, and right now, detention space is not a problem.
Okay.
In fact, we're doing very well on that.
But you haven't had any type of architectural.
No, the only thing, Richard McNeil saw us from JBHM, who were the original architects on this, and indicated that they wanted to come back and just do a follow-up to see how the building was working for us. And when they came out, we told them that we were looking at this, and he said, well, they'd be interested in looking at it. Yeah, but we said, we're not doing anything until we're doing whatever the board's pleasure is.
Question on that, it seems like we have a lot of problems with that building up there. Is it architectural related, or is it construction company related, or?
The only issues that we primarily had were related to air conditioning, HVAC, and that was during the initial construction of the building. Just from my own observation, HVAC work in the commercial building sector is a finger-pointing exercise between the electricians, the plumbers, and the HVAC equipment installers as to whose problem created what.
Yeah, we've had plenty of problems since we built this. I mean.
Well, most of it had to do with water getting in, really.
Yeah, right. We
But I'm
flooded
saying
our
because of cuttings,
server
yeah.
room and.
I was saying, is it
Oh,
the
no.
construction company or the architect that was the problem?
They both point fingers.
Yeah,
Both each other?
Yeah.
And the AC people, then they point to AC people.
And nobody wants to
But
take
they didn't cut
responsibility
through the
for it.
roof
But we
line.
already know our units up there.
We just had a
8 years in
replacement
and had to
unit.
replace them.
Yeah, we just had to have a replacement unit on the front lobby. And
8 years.
yeah, that's been an issue that we don't know what exactly caused that issue, but there were a lot of finger pointing that went around on all of that. That's been the biggest complaint, other than securing fiber. We've had fiber issues from time to time as to speed of fiber out there, but the air
Really?
conditioning, yeah.
If you had to reach out and grab for a footprint, square footage, Captain, Paul, whatever, what would it be? 5,000, 7,500 square feet? 10? Just throw a number out there for fun of it.
I would say probably on the lower side, 5,000.
6.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think by the time you do education classes and offices, I don't know what
But,
the typical.
but some of this is the existing, there's existing structure out there for a good portion of that. So it would really be more of a situation of taking the roof line out and then putting in whatever HVAC was needed for that.
So you got a foundation there already?
Oh yeah, it's foundation. Yeah, we told them when we went out there initially that it was anticipated at some point that room might have to be taken back. So I think, at least from our standpoint, whether that happened or not, all of the necessary components were there. That's what our intent was at some point down the road, and unfortunately, I think we're at that point.
I've been trying to make sure I was following the conversation, but y'all may have said this and I just missed it. Is any of this additional space considered detention space?
No, it's the portion that we're looking at putting the roof over is in detention.
Those walls are probably built.
For
detention standards.
They are.
But it would just be roof dissolved. And the actual use of the space post-construction would not be detention.
Right.
I think that makes a difference as far
Oh
as.
yeah, cost-wise, it's a huge difference. But yeah, what we would need to do, quite frankly, is to have somebody come out and take a look at what we're at and give some ideas as to what that plan would be.
Wouldn't want you to be my estimator.
I can tell you just from experience, the cost of detention square footage is 4 times what anything else would be, maybe even higher.
Yeah, I mean, I just hate to see us take that money that we spent for detention expansion, because that's what that space could be used for, the detention expansion, but right now you're saying that's not high on y'all's list of
Oh, no,
utilization.
if detention expansion is ever needed, the corridor that exists right there is built so that another pod can be built
Okay.
straight on out.
Okay.
There's an expansion plan in the draft that you have.
Right.
So this would not interfere with any of those. If you needed another pod, you can go straight on out and drop another pod in. In fact, you could actually drop 2 pods in if you had to, based on the property that's out there.
I guess.
Yes, well, that'll be after Captain Gray and I are dead and gone, or it will be the reason we're dead and gone.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
So what is it, I mean, you're obviously asking here to us to make this part of our consideration. Mr. Schley, obviously we need something to kind of help, and I don't want to hold it up for this, but I mean.
If I could make 2 comments about that. Number one, first, I want to thank the judge and Paul for being prompt and considerate towards you guys.
Wait a minute, they weren't prompt. We're at
That-
the end of this. They might have been prompt when they found out about it.
I would
but-
say that outside of the board and your staff, they were one of the first to the table to come and make sure that a marker was put down for this to at least be considered. So I appreciate that. Secondarily, they were quick to agree that the informal discussions with the original architect were only discussions, and efforts were made to make that point very clear, that the board would have to approve and the project would have to be undertaken before the county would be in a position to incur any architectural or planning related service expenses. And I think I can safely say that that the staff at the youth court is not necessarily wedded to any particular architect group, and would defer to the board.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that would be important for you guys to hear, that the board is still going to be responsible for, essentially for authorizing the employment of any professionals that are associated with this project. So from a planning related type of analysis, and this is just, I'm just assigning, Bob, I assigned $350 a foot to that. That's where I came up with that. That's how I got that number. Okay, so that's.
I was thinking 200, that,
Yeah,
you
so.
already got some of the structure in place.
Right.
that,
I did not account for any of that. And I was simply looking at an aggressive approach to make sure that it was a conservative estimate.
But
Okay,
anytime
so-
you add on to a building, you add about four times the amount.
What was that ballpark for that, 5,000 square feet?
Yeah, so I said million. He said million, said 50. I said a million. You know.
Okay.
Somewhere in between those two, probably for kicking tires purposes. I think you guys would be, it'd be appropriate to assign somewhere between those two figures as an estimate for the cost of the project. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about. Do y'all have any other questions of Judge Broom or Paul before we move forward on it?
Yeah, we just wanted to put it on your list of things to consider and give us guidance on how y'all want us to proceed. We recognize that there's a long list of priorities, and we appreciate the job y'all do
Thank you,
in
Judge.
trying to go through that. So, but if you would like to come out and take a look and see what we're talking about, we'll be happy to have you out there and give you a tour of what we're looking at and try and give you an explanation. Or if you have anybody that you want to send out to take a look at it, so that we can give you some better idea. Because quite frankly, you know, we have the existing plans for the building, and we can show them what's out there and they can see on site. There would be a little bit of a, you know, removal of some of it, but I think for the most part, the way it's laid out, you wouldn't have to affect existing operations and tie in directly to, it wouldn't be like what's going to have to go on at the EOC when you start putting that roof on.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay,
Captain,
thank
I
y'all.
appreciate it. Paul,
Thank
appreciate
y'all.
it.
Stay in touch. Back to your bond issue discussion, project list. I will refer you guys to the project list that's in front of you, and you've heard the addition. And I think Ms. Wanda is. We're just basically using a midpoint estimate in here between the two calculations. We've assigned the judge's project about 1.4 million. What's the total now?
The revised estimate.
Yes, ma'am.
36,913,800. Right at 37.
Okay. And so you guys can see that in light of your intent resolution and your recently passed resolution related to your decision to issue not to exceed 30 million, we now have some work to do on the reverse side. We've been talking about what projects to include at some point, given the projects that are on the list. Out of necessity, we're going to have to start shedding some of these. Yes,
What
sir.
is our balance on the bridge fund?
7.2.
Huh?
7.2.
7.2? And you're thinking,
Now, that's real money.
I mean, it's in the account today, as of right, basically now.
I mean, we got like.
7.2.
Am I right on it?
And y'all are anticipating the bridge replacement here, this last line item, that 3.5 would cover all the problems we have that with the replacements?
Gonna cover most of it, Mr. Bob. This is just first round of inspections we're going through right now. So we've got about maybe half of our bridges inspection through this new guideline.
So this will be replacement?
Well, that's that component replacement.
Yeah. Y'all remember?
Component replacement. We've got one or two bridges that will have to be completely replaced because the pile is under them. But most of this is gonna be component replacements that have to be done.
State aid bridges.
Component.
Was what we talked
be like some decks and stuff that'll have to be replaced, Jared. There's gonna be some pilings that'll have to be done.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
understand
wing
pilings.
walls, different things like that. I mean, it's just different pieces and parts that didn't pass the inspection process. We're either gonna have to replace them or we're gonna have to start posting bridges. We don't have no bridges, to my knowledge right now, Tim, that we have to shut down. But there will be some bridges that will be low weight posted.
Y'all remember a discussion about a year and a half ago?
Yep.
Where we told you guys that the Office of State Age Bridge Inspection had come up with a new regimen and had indicated to all counties the level of review each bridge would have to undergo. You remember that?
Pictures.
Yeah.
And so this is the natural outworking of that helpful state-led
So
approach.
helpful. So
Very helpful to us.
Yeah.
So all of your inspection regimen is now cost you extra. And as luck would have it, in terms of justifying their existence, they found issues that have to be dealt with, and this is just a natural byproduct of that. So we've got some bridges that need some attention, but I want to make it clear on the record because people can misunderstand and misinterpret what they hear sometimes, and I'm not suggesting that's what's happening, but just to make sure that doesn't happen, we don't have bridges that are about to fail. We have component parts of bridges that need some attention. And that's what this project would be designed to relieve.
Is this number got
Bridge
some
component
fluff in it?
replacement.
That number, Jared, this year, we inspected half the bridges. Next year, we'll inspect the other half. They're on a 2-year cycle. Some of them come up every year, but most of them are on a 2-year cycle. So we anticipated finding similar next year what we found this year. So we've anticipated, or tried to anticipate as best we can, next year's inspection cycle in this number.
So we got like 210 bridges. That's a lot.
What kind of balance do we want to maintain in the bridge fund? I guess maybe the next question to ask.
He said it's gonna be about 3 million, you said?
3.5, he's got
3.5.
budget, there's 7.2 in the
I'm
fund
thinking
now.
about 3 million.
Keep 3 million in the fund?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what do we usually draw into that each year over millage? Yeah. No, what do we, what
How
we
much do we get in,
receive?
I think, each year?
Yeah. Did I just hear you say been gone too long?
Yeah, my brain's in retirement mode still.
So, do we need to start at the top, work our way down, pick
Yeah,
out this list?
I'm deferring to you guys to tell me how you want to work the process. You see what the numbers are on the basis of the listed projects.
Well,
We've
I can
got
make it
to.
real easy. We stop below District 5 and mark all them out. Me too. I don't know what they laughing about. I'm being dead serious. I mean, seriously, the last thing we discussed as a board was the putting the money in there for District 5. And that was gonna bring us 25 million.
No, I'm sorry. I think I threw in Grants Ferry Extension in there too, as well as Terra Road. We just didn't have numbers at the time.
That's
You know,
correct.
So,
Well, you brought it up last meeting, but we
no,
discussed
well,
it.
those 2 meetings you missed.
Okay. Sorry. That 1 week? That 1 week?
If I could suggest this, y'all tell me if this is all right. Can we look at the first page, which is our original project list, and let's just make sure that that there's we're generally satisfied with page 1.
Let's ask this question. Mr. Word was kind enough to say on the EOC what we discussed, that 250 was far and above needed. However, given where we're talking about the roof problem, maybe we need to bump it? I mean, where was the money gonna come out of the roof for EOC if we weren't doing this? Where is that money coming from?
I was under the assumption that Johnny Jones was coming out of his, and the 200 was the other beyond. I don't believe you're gonna do that roof for $250,000.
Ms. Laura is saying there's no money in that fund, not in his budget, not that kind of money.
The money was for the DHS.
DHS
bill. I don't
bill.
know how much it's gonna be, but I think there was only like 50 to 70 in there for DHS. There wasn't anything budgeted for EOC.
Mr. Franco may give you a ballpark estimate, but I don't believe, with the conversation that we had yesterday, just the complexity of that roof system with 3 different pitches and 8 different hips and 2 flat roofs on top of that. I don't know.
I just say about 6, 12 trees posts and then put a big metal roof over the whole damn thing and then just let it go.
That's basically what I was saying. He said it's gonna be more costly.
The heck with replacing anything. So that probably needs to be adjusted up then, as opposed to the 250 we've got, or the 3, whatever that number was.
250.
You'll see, where is it?
250.
Probably needs to be bumped up.
But
If we're
if
gonna
you,
do a new roof.
yeah, I mean, you add $1 million, right? So you're at 24,463, right? You add the $1 million to it
Yeah.
on the first year.
Yes.
Honestly, Jay, I thought this million right here was yours. The initial funding drainage, I thought that's the million that was yours. You put in there.
Now, we just talk about funding the initial drainage district by $1 million.
$1 million, yeah.
And then Mr. Slade would like to bump it up by $2 million to make the number look more impressive to the boys up Washington, essentially, right?
Yes, sir. That boiled down to its essence.
But can we do that? I mean, from our bond council here?
That's a subject that I'd like to discuss with you guys in executive session, because we do anticipate some potential litigation.
I better cancel right now where I'm supposed to be.
Building project or.
Hey, y'all quit negotiating down there.
No, he's talking about this $1 million.
No, he's saying you can't use the $1 million for drainage.
You 3 get together, you know, just bad stuff happens.
He
So
said,
you hear, Bob, we
said you can't use the $1 million for drainage district.
Of drainage district.
Let's clarify something. At the moment, I would not be in a position to say that we can or cannot.
Well,
And
first,
after our
just make it
discussion.
easy, could we not just take $1 million and put an extra $1 million of road projects in there, and then just spend the $1 million out of road and bridge to do the drainage?
Yes, sir. You can swap dollars, as it were, Jay. We believe, however, that there is probably just as easy an approach to get a clear answer on that, but we need to talk about that in executive session because of the potential litigation that's involved.
Okay.
Okay? We've got options for you guys to talk about. We're just not prepared. We can't do it right now. All right?
Okay.
So I'd like to leave it as described for the moment,
Okay.
and with the understanding that we may not be able to keep it like it is, okay? But
I don't have any problem on the front page of anything. I mean, granted, if we gotta cut, we cut.
Well, the only thing I'm questioning, and I'm just saying, is a hard sell to sell an animal shelter $1 million.
No, it's not. If you're looking at a 5,000 to 6,000 square foot footprint, $1 million not
I
hard to sell at
mean
all.
for animal shelters, what I'm saying. That,
That's a line in the sand for me. Just saying.
All right. So what are we doing in Bell Grove, Northwoods? What are we doing?
It's all that road work, ditch
Curb.
cuts, curb improvements.
Curb
It's not curbs, but
repairs.
it's recutting it, repaving it. They hadn't had any work in forever. They're in a bad spot. Bad spot.
Is Woodbridge in addition to their letter of credit?
yes, sir, it is. Thank
Yes.
you, Bob,
In addition to it, yep.
for pointing that out.
That's the discussion we had with.
I remember the discussion. I just didn't realize we were getting stuck with that much of it. But I guess that was existing, maybe?
We're gonna have to put that down regardless of what
Regardless
happens.
whether it's-
Yep.
That particular project was caught up in the economic downturn. That subdivision development has been online for years.
Yeah, I've praised it on several occasions.
Yes, sir. The developer finally succumbed, and the development has slowly built out. And over that period of time, we've seen a ramping up of both the repair that has to be done and the amount of the overlay on both of those component parts of that project.
Have you had a chance to flush out the Terrell Road drainage scope yet?
No, sir.
And the only reason I put that one on there is because we already done half the job, you know, and it needs to be finished because it's just not really doing what the intention was.
Well, you know, we did all that with federal dollars.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. That's why it was done half-assed, you know. I mean, it's just half done. I mean,
Wait
we
a minute
didn't-
now, I mean, we still hired the same whoever.
Well, I
to
mean,
do
I
it,
know that,
you
but it served no purpose, really. I mean, we did half of it, and didn't do the other half. Now granted, I'm sure we were told that we were gonna have the option line to get the other half to finish it. Well, of course, that never happens with the Fed money, you never get it.
Well, not only that, we moved on and did other projects. We went back to the reservoir and started doing another project up there, because after we did Terra Road, we went to Mill
Would
Creek.
you explain to me why it was just on the north side of the ditch, you know, that we
Well,
did
the
it
other
that way?
side's in the city.
No. It goes from Terra Road middle way up to west of that, Donald Park
Yes, sir.
subdivision.
Donald Park.
And stops. And up to 468, it's nothing there.
We
It's
stopped
dead.
at 468. I thought you were talking about why didn't we go to the other side of 468?
I thought why you need to go all the way to 468, you know, because city's on the other side of 468.
Right.
And they did their part, they got their money.
Well, actually, no, we gave them money for that
Did
too.
they tell you? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Great.
Yeah.
Between the city and county did the job.
Yeah.
And really, this is only one phase of it. The whole project's $4 million.
I didn't remember.
Is all that in the county you're talking about on this?
Yes, all this is in the county.
I know that there's a lot that need still, because I know that there was people coming in with water issues after that, but there was a lot more before that.
Yeah.
You know, so it did some good.
Well, it needs to go from Terra Road to Richland Creek. That's what we're proposing here, right, Tim? I mean, this is where we think the best money can be spent to help facilitate that project, is to get into the Richland Creek and, you know, and leave it up to Richland and Florence how to figure out what to do with it
And
when it
this
gets down there.
project that we're talking about right now is of the type that you will have to listen to my presentation in executive session about whether or not this is even
feasible. Right, that's fine. That's fine.
So what
Ehrlich
about
Road,
the
is that where we're doing
Greenwich
something on the
Parkway
bridge there? Is
extension?
that what that is? Ehrlich Road?
What?
The Ehrlich Road, is that the bridge, something bridge issue?
It's got, well, it's, Mike, you get up here and explain some of that, Tim. No, seriously, what it is, it's
Part
got
of it is
got
a
a
bridge.
big box culvert, we're taking a bridge out.
Taking a
That's
bridge
gotta
out.
come out, would be one of the,
Putting a precast box in, Mr. Bob, and we're kind of straightening up the creek. We've got some road, the way the bridge sits. The water's coming in there swirling behind the head wall, and we've had to fix the head wall several times. This is the only way in and out of a road, so we've had to shut the road down a couple times, you know, in the middle of the night and work this through the night. So we're trying to put a box in to straighten the road up and let the water go straight through.
and I got a question. Driving down there and all, and this is y'all's call, do we really need to go to the extent we're going to that road? Because all I'm getting is emails, when you gonna pave it? I mean, yes, I see what you're saying, I agree, but on the other side, do we need to go to the extent, as far, I mean, do you think the base, I guess the problem is it doesn't have any base on it, because the road was never built for this. I mean, it's been a public road, but it was never built for the traffic that's on it now. It was just 2 or 3 cars went down at one time. And so is this gonna be what it's gonna take, this number?
$3,000 ton.
Yeah, I mean, the way this number came was replacing the bridge with a box culvert, and then put base asphalt on the road and then surface. And,
Okay.
I mean, you could put surface on it now, but you've gotta pre-level it because it's so
Right.
out of shape. And to do that, we're using base because obviously it's cheaper, and it's a lot of it. I mean,
Yeah, it's just, because it's just it was just a up and down gravel road that, I think George one time put a little something on it just so it wouldn't have dust. And it's just, but, in that, is this figuring the fact that Florence is gonna help any with the culvert and the fact they're gonna do the, do the right-of-way, and stuff they're doing as far as
The
where the
right-of-way
culvert's
portion
going?
is not in this, so that we've said that the city was gonna acquire the necessary right-of-way.
Yeah.
But now any assistance, there's no monetary assistance for a box or anything. I mean, this is the full package here.
Right, but they're gonna contribute some, a small amount.
Okay, whatever that number is has not been deducted out of
Okay,
that.
all right, yep. Okay.
So we didn't know what the right of way and stuff was.
Right, this seemed, just to me, seemed a little high because of what other discussions we had had about it. And when I saw it, I was a little set back. You know, I just thought it was high from what.
This'll be cheaper than tearing the road up and soil cement it and relaying it down. If you soil cement, you still gotta go through this same process.
Well, are you figuring us doing it, or are you contracting this out?
This all be contracted out right now.
Well, as far as, I mean, every bit of it?
Yes, sir. I mean, I've used my paving price to do the paving, and we'll contract the bridge out, the box culvert, unless y'all want me to install it.
I mean, I thought this was a project that we would do basically in-house, but I mean, I think so that's why it's really gone up. We're both looking at contracting it out, correct?
Sorry, which project we talking about?
This Ehrlich Road.
Early road.
I mean, you'll have to have some kind of crane, boom crane to set these big box culverts and everything. I mean,
Well, I'm not, we knew that to start with. I mean, right.
But the precast, we're using precast, we was looking at aluminized, that's when the county was gonna do it. But the aluminized box culvert's gonna be about double the price of precast concrete, so it's gonna be a little cheaper to use
That's hard to imagine.
It's one way or the other. It's gonna cost you either to do the aluminized box, or it's gonna cost you a little cheaper to do the.
But then we're gonna do the road? Or you?
I mean, my contractors will do the asphalt paving on it.
I mean, as far as prep?
Yeah, we'll have it prepped and ready, but I mean, on that, but I mean, it's gonna be that.
Well, I guess the reason I asked, one time we talked about $450,000.
That was just to do the road. There's 2 miles of road in there.
Okay, you know, you look at the Bolton Road, Monroe, Thomasville, up Splits Mine and Jarrett. I mean, Mike looked at it, he could probably do it for about $250. But then again, you tie him up doing that as opposed to doing what he might need to do in regular business too.
Oh, I understand, I'm just trying to, that number surprised me. I know it's no way around it. I mean, they ain't driving on nothing now. But,
So we know we need to do that work. I guess we need to go from the top, because
Let's do this.
I don't wanna do $30 million.
Jay, let's do this. Mr. President, let's go ahead and go into executive session and discuss the drainage, because you're looking at $3 million on this page for drainage. Let's
That's a good
have that
idea.
discussion.
We need to clear that up, yeah, before we know where we're going.
Before we start jogging everything else.
Yeah.
Because I'm all for pushing the bridge replacement, kicking that on down the road some, maybe, if it makes sense, maybe that we do that.
Well, I ain't kicking it down the road, we just ain't gonna spend bond money on it,
Yeah.
We still gotta do it.
At some point, we just,
take it from
Well,
another pot of money.
and you still don't know what we usually draw, bring in a year in road, and bridge.
The levy, I'm wanting to say around 4 to 5 million is the levy on.
4 or 5 million.
bridge.
You say 4 or 5 million?
4 or 5, 4 to 5.
Well, I don't know why, if that's the case, why we,
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we go into discuss the need for executive session.
Litigation, potential litigation.
Well, I have to read the purpose yet, I got
Okay.
to stuff. Don't get ahead of me.
I'm making that clear to anyone who may be anticipating what the purpose is.
All right, we have a motion that we go into executive session. We have a second by Jared. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I make a motion to go into executive session, the need of litigation.
All right. We have a motion by Bob to go into executive session for litigation. Jay'd already gotten you, Jared. Jay seconded. All in
seconded
favor?
before you made it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Happy birthday. I thought he was gonna sing to you.
She didn't want me singing.
Hey, come clear the room. Steve, come clear the room.
Please clear the room if you're not involved in executive session.
I'll call you separate. Thank you.